Hello everyone, how you doing? And welcome back to Skye and Evan in the morning. And today we're gonna be talking about Rian Johnson and his Knives Out movies, Knives Out and Glass Onion, a Knives Out story. And yeah, Evan, I have an interesting relationship with these movies. Knives Out, I saw it when it came out in theaters, and I was like, hey,
Me
I
too.
like that movie. That was fun. And then I rewatched it, and that was the whole, EFAP thing. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a bad movie now. And then I rewatched it again this time. I was like, you know what? It's a good movie. So I feel like I've gone through an entire arc with this movie.
Well, it's like I feel like we both went through the same arc because, like, I think I mentioned it in the last episode. I'm like, you and I probably wouldn't have met if The Last Jedi hadn't come out. A lot of people wouldn't have met, and it's like, maybe one day we'll talk about The Last Jedi. You never know, but I really don't like that movie to this day. And Rian Johnson is interesting. I've seen most of his movies, and I uh, people criticize the plot details in his movies and like how his movies work on like a narrative level, and they point to things that are tangible that don't make sense to criticize him, which I think is a fair way to criticize movies, honestly. But these movies are what he made in like the wake of The Last Jedi, and I I would say there are Last Jedi isms in all of them, and like in the two that we have so far. But I always liked Knives Out back when I watched it in theaters, but I hated Glass Onion when I walked out of theaters. Like I watched it with my brother in theaters. I went out of my way because I knew it was going to be on Netflix, and I wanted to watch it in theaters because the first movie has really good cinematography, and I was like, I wanted to give it a chance, and I remember me and my brother were just like, "No, dude, fuck this." It's like, and having just rewatched them now, I think that's pretty similar to my opinion now. I like the first one, but the second one not as much in the slightest.
Well, the second one is just the worst version of the first, I would say.
Kind of. I mean, it's one of those things that I mentioned it right before we recorded, but these movies are both trying to play on conventions of like the classic whodunit. They're trying
Yeah.
to, deconstruct. It's the whole thing with The Last Jedi, where The Last Jedi is supposedly deconstructing everything. That's what Rian Johnson is known as, like the anti filmmaker.
Hmm.
Everyone like does this one thing and he breaks conventions. Is like, no, it's like I'm going to change this up. And it's one of those things people always say this, cliches exist for a reason. They work. And whodunits are the perfect example of that, aren't they? Everyone knows what every single Scooby-Doo episode is going to be. They're all exactly the same. Why are they all exactly the same? Because Scooby-Doo works. You know, you lay out the clues, and Velma gives the final array, and it's like, Fred has the trap, Scooby and Shaggy like get in danger. It's the same story, but the fun of whodunits is how you tell the story. And I don't know if I'm a fan of how Rian Johnson attempts to deconstruct it, because it's strange how he goes about it.
Well, both movies, right? And we'll probably get into more specifics of each one. Um, but both movies are like they kind of like make fun of the well, not make fun, but they subvert the whodunit genre by being like, hey, we like our twist, like our story, our whodunit is so like
Well,
stupid and basic that it's not actually a whodunit, and that's kind of the thing.
well, I think they do make fun of it because they like say that Clue is a terrible game, and they're like everyone has a motive, and that's the thing, specific mystery wise, that I if you want just a simple criticism of these movies from me, I don't think they're good mysteries. Just straight up, I'm
Well,
like, I
yeah,
don't
but
think
that's
either
what
of
I'm
them are good
saying. I think
mysteries.
the entire point
And
is that
it's
the
like,
mystery isn't like uh
well,
the mystery isn't
the
the
point.
the point. Like they're making fun of that, of like, oh, it is so complicated. Then it turns out it's like super simple, and the answer was staring them right at the face. It's the like in the second one, it's just like it's just dumb, and that's like the conclusion. And in the first one, it's the donut hole in the donut hole, which is like the answer was just like we had the whole story and everything, but. So I don't know. I feel like it is kind of like on purpose.
Yeah, it's fair enough. My thing with that is that I think it makes a lot of the cast boring. Like, because with an ensemble cast, the whole thing is you want everyone to stand out, them to all feel like different characters. And to their credit, I think they do a decent enough job in both movies of making everyone stand out. I mean, they hire very good actors to play the characters, but there comes a point in both movies where they just become a hive mind. It's like, who are these characters? They're the people sucking up to the rich white guy. It's like, that's kind of it. And it's, they have kids, and at least in the first movie they do, but that's what they all are at the end of the day. Well, like once the will's read in the first movie, and then the characters through and through in Glass Onion are just, Miles Braun sycophants. And it's just, what's the point? What are you meant to cling on to with them as individual people? Because they're all kind of suck ups and just rich. And
well, it's kind of the thing that with the second one that is a little, well, it's quite a lot worse. And with that is that the characters that are the assholes that are doing the fucking like sucking up to the rich white guy. I guess they do that in both movies. They are not like characters and more caricatures. In the first one, they have a lot funnier banter to work with. Their characters and their dynamics are explored a lot more interestingly. But it's also like we have Ransom, who's actually a very cool, interesting character who I really like, and he
definitely stands out versus the other characters in that movie largely.
And obviously Marta is actually also like a character who is developed. Because in the second one we barely have like any characters. They're all caricatures, and the character who we have like to be like the same as Marta, which is Helen in the second one, we don't know who she is because she's pretending to be someone else for half the movie.
Yeah.
So exactly. we don't get like the first half of the movie just goes and goes and goes. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then when it does, and we get the reveal, and then we see the movie differently. I think the second half of the movie is far more interesting because you finally get something to cling on to, because before it's just like kind of going through the motions. Like, I think the second movie is very poorly paced. The first one, I think, is paced really well.
Well, you were mentioning that, and like the thing is, both movies do have what you could call like a switch, because in both movies they basically reveal what the story's all about. They were like, Blanc isn't really the main character of these movies. Marta and Helen are. They're the person who's trying to figure out what's going on is the real main character of the story and does the actual detective work of the story. In the first movie, when they switch, it's for the sake of showing what happened when Harlan died. Basically, it's like this is what happened from Marta's perspective. She was there. This is what really occurred, and it's like maybe I'd like to say 20 minutes. I mean, let me pull up the movie. I got it. It's not that long. So Blanc flips the coin at 32 minutes, give or take, and then it's over after 43. So yeah, it's not that long where they just switch, show you, and it's like, okay, that's Marta's deal. But it's pretty much the halfway mark of Glass Onion, where they literally are halfway through the movie and it's like cut to black. And it's like, hey, here all along, it's been the Andy, quote unquote, has been a third grade teacher from Alabama who wants to solve the mystery of her sister's death, who she didn't know too well. And she told her not to hang out with those shitheads. And she's got a journal that has every bit of detail about her that she can know. And she did the rich bitch. Okay. So I don't know if you agree. I think Marta is a much better character than Helen.
By far. I think Helen is much less of a character even. She's just the nice girl.
Yeah. Marta in the first movie, for one, they actually, the key scene that they do show this is when Harlan actually dies. But, they play Go, and you see that he's a lot more open with Marta, and that's what she tells Blanc. Like, he needed a friend. She was his friend. That's
Yeah.
why he willed everything to her. It wasn't just to spite his children. It was because she was there for him and she actually cared about him. They give you reason to like Marta beyond her like being the minority oppressed by the rich people. She had a relationship with Harlan, and they show her family as well from the very beginning. So it's not just something that they mention. It's like, your mother's undocumented, like we can't let that happen. It's like, yeah, they give you a lot more with her, and the way she acts in the actual movie is like, I think just a lot more indicative of better character. I mean, something that I laughed at is the box, because in Glass Onion, because retrospectively you're like, okay, so that was Helen. And I always found that a funny moment, because it is funny just at face value. It's like everyone else solves the elaborate, like, oh my God, there's all these like small little puzzles, and it opens the box and it's all elaborate. And then she just takes a fucking hammer and just destroys the entire thing. And I'm like, what is that meant to tell you about her as a character? I'm like, I'm not sure, but I just get instability. I just get someone who's manic from that. Like, what kind of person gets a box, even from someone that like screwed your sister over, and you just smash it all to shit? It's like, what if there was like a CD in there or some like clue that was fragile? It's just, I don't know. I definitely prefer Marta though as a character to Helen.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing. Well, I don't know. Like that part of the character I do kind of like I don't mind like her destroy the box. Like she just got like mailed a box from like Miles Braun of all people. Well,
yeah.
So it's like,
and her sister just died.
Yeah.
Like I said, I get it on technicality, but
yeah. But she's like
it's
a
still
much
a weird
less
thing for someone to
interesting
do.
character. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It's because Marta is like an actual character, and I mean, we're kind of like comparing both movies, which is interesting, instead of just like talking about one and then another. But yeah,
you want to stick with like Knives Out from the beginning, I suppose, because we'll probably compare the two, but like we can kind of talk about the first movie, because I
like the first movie.
What would you give it rating wise?
I give it an 8. You gave it an 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a 6. I think I'd given it a 7 before on Letterboxd, and my ratings bounced around, but I always felt like within that range given this. It's funny on Letterboxd, actually. It's like the most aggressively 8 out of 10 movie ever. It's just like the 8s are so much higher. Yeah. It's like, I feel like people just think that's like the right rating for this movie. So, What do you want to talk about? Because I honestly want to talk about the mystery element, specifically the morphine and like Harlan's perfect crime. Because that was always the thing that bothered me, even when I watched this in theaters. I liked the characters and I liked the cinematography and like the execution, but the actual mystery, it's really weird how all that works.
Well, I don't know. I think like the entire thing with both movies is that kind of like the movie, making it is very like a satirical universe, so it's not taking itself too seriously, and both mysteries are supposed to be like dumb and like to be obvious when you look back at them, and you're like, it's just like Blanc even says at the end of the first movie, it's like a comedy of errors. But it's like, I think taking this movie as just like a funny commentary on rich people, which I think is done like way better in this movie than in the second one, because it treats it with a lot more subtlety. Yeah. Like one of my favorite jokes in this movie is that no one knows what country Marta's from. Yeah, they all say a different one. It's amazing.
Richard, what does he says? He says Paraguay. Ransom says she's from Brazil. Like, everyone is a
I think they say four countries. It's Paraguay, Uruguay, Ecuador, and Brazil. Yeah, Ransom says Brazil.
Loki was looking it up, but I'm not even sure what her like canonical ethnicity.
Oh, they don't say it, which is, I think, kind of the point, that like nobody knows, nobody bothered to care.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. She's an immigrant. Her mother's undocumented. That's all that really matters. Her
Yeah.
actual country is just almost a moot point. What matters is how everyone treats her. And there's a there's a subtle joke that I love. I'm literally watching it now when Richard, it's the big scene where they talk about immigrants. And it's the classic, talking about politics at the
Yeah.
family reunion. But Richard's like bringing her as an example. And then he gives her his empty plate
Yeah.
like she's the maid, like she takes it from him.
Well,
And
that's the
he
thing because they
hands it
treat
up
them
without a
like
word.
the help. And I love that kind of thing. Like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
way they talk about the help is really well done in this movie, I think. It's
Yeah.
all like very
I-
treated exactly how rich people treat, the workers they hire to work in their homes and everything. They treat them like the
Yeah,
help, which is why I actually like that Ransom makes them call him Hugh. Because I'm like, you know what? That does sound like a thing some rich asset would do. Just be like, oh yeah, call me Hugh. Don't call me Ransom, which is like would be like the name everyone who loves me calls me. You call me something like more formal, I guess. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
It's a thing, like people not being a part of that world. I mentioned Succession, and I love in that show that they always show people like setting up the elaborate dinners, and like they make a point of showing the maids and the people that make the actual series happen. And that's a part of this movie where it's like people like Marta and Fran, they're looked at as the help. They're looked at as lower than the actual characters in the movie. I like that, and I like Marta as
it's why as well.
part
Like
of that
they
world.
say, like, oh, you see, if now that Harlan died, we're still gonna take care of you. You're part of the family and everything. So like they're also like,
Yeah,
trying to
but
keep her in the family. But when she inherits the money, it's the opposite. It's like, no, you're taking it from
everyone
us. You're not part
turns.
of the
Yeah.
family. We're actual family. It's great. All of that is like so much subtler than the second movie, and it works, I think, with these characters so much more. And I don't know if it's just like the cast of characters is just like better written, or the actors had like better chemistry or something. They just feel more like people, even though they are still
Well,
caricatures in this movie.
Well, honestly, I'd say a simple reason that probably is the fact that, like I said, it's like 10 minutes, give or take, to show what really happened with Marta and Harlan. And she was a character from the beginning, and they characterized her throughout the movie in spite of all the subversions. The problem with Helen is she's pretending to be Andy on the island the entire time. And it's not till halfway through that and what I realized halfway through was that she was the reason why she's so stoic is she's doing a Mona Lisa impression through most of the movie.
Oh yeah,
She's just
they're trying
staring
to
blankly.
they're
and
trying to make the Mona Lisa like metaphor stick with her. Yeah.
only problem is the Mona Lisa is a painting, not a character, and it's like it's really weird to just see her brooding around. And I don't know about you. The first time I watched this movie, I'm like, yeah, she's what this is all about. They played the classic Knives Out theme whenever she like walks or like enters a scene. I'm like, I wonder who's the important character that this movie's all about. Maybe it's the character who keeps disappearing and has barely been in the movie and only shows up to say cryptic shit. It's like, I don't know. I think the problem with Helen is that she basically isn't Helen for half of the movie until they go back and redo everything with her. Whereas Marta was developed through and through, and it's a little more thematically on point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think like because when I last watched this movie, I was trying to like take it too seriously, trying to like see, oh, like with Ransom's plan and everything. Like, yeah, Ransom's plan is awful, but that's kind of the thing. He's just like not
Yeah,
that smart. He did not think it through. And it's the same thing with Harlan. He did not think it through. Like you were making fun of it. It was like, oh, I probably forgot something. He forgot his toxicology report. It's like, yeah, but like he has like 6 minutes to die. I can kind of buy that he's not thinking clearly and forget something like that. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's not about like whether his plan would have worked. It's how it all turned out, because Marta is like, as the movie keeps saying, a good person. She doesn't play Harlan's game. It turns into like she wins by just being a good person instead of actually trying to play that game, which would have ultimately like cost her everything.
Well, honestly, on retrospective rewatch, that was probably my favorite part of the movie, is when she finds Fran poisoned and then she she like it's the whole thing where Ransom's plan was that she would die, she'd see that, she'd leave, and then she'd get framed for the murder, like as like the morphine killer. But she ends up doing CPR and trying to save Fran's life and calling an ambulance, and she wanted to call an ambulance for Harlan. And it's like that's interesting. That's interesting that she put Fran's life above hers and was willing to go to jail for it just to save her life. It lot more of that going on with Marta than with Helen. Helen doesn't have those same kind of moral dilemmas in Glass Onion. They just kind of give her the easy, and all the clues kind of just fall in her lap, unfortunately. So yeah, I appreciate that. But just to touch on it, I have to talk about the actual morphine deal.
Yeah.
It bothers me. So you just said it there. Yeah, that's the whole thing. And that's what people say. Like, if you want to get away with murder, there's like 10 things that the cops are going to find that are going to like, put you behind bars. It's like, it's just a matter of making those 10 things as like small, because you want to get away with murder. Like, you got to be really lucky. You just have to, no matter how perfectly you plan the crime. But there's always going to be something. It's just a matter of, can it be overlooked? Can it be misinterpreted? And I feel like that's what they were going for in this movie, but Harlan's plan. So it's morphine, and then the other medication that's for like pain in his shoulder, apparently. Which, by the way, I was looking that up last night. I think they cut out one O from the label, which is really funny. Ketorolac. I think it's Ketorolac. Psycho nitpick that only I would notice. But so for one, the maximum dosage, yeah, it even says on the bottle like 30 milligrams. They make it like 100. But so Ransom's whole thing is he went in and he like messed with the vials, and he switched the liquids in them using the syringes.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of weird now that I just think of it off the top of my head, because like you'd think you need like an empty bottle to switch it, but whatever. The bigger thing that I realized when I was like pausing the array that Blanc was doing, I was like, wait a minute. So if you called an ambulance, you're like, oh my God, my boss, he just had an episode. I gave him his medication. It's like, what the fuck happened? I thought I gave him morphine. And it's like, and then they would take that, the police or the ambulance, like they would ask what medications you have, and they'd take that, and they'd be like, what the fuck? This one has morphine, even though it's like ketorolac. It's like, what's the deal? It's like, I don't know. And then the question there would be like, someone must have switched it. Why else would you switch it yourself, then call an ambulance? But then they say, no, his plan was to go back and steal them back again. But it's like, how would you not assume that the cops or like the ambulance would take that with you? Like, what was your plan then, to switch them back? And then he just drops that because the dogs were barking, and then he plays into the plan to get her on his side. But then Fran tries to blackmail him, which that was probably the weirdest thing when I rewatched it this time.
That is part of the comedy of errors of that part of the movie's making fun of. But I don't know. I think the thing is, right, his plan sucks, and him thinking, no, I'll just come back in the morning, is like a hilarious thing for him to think would work. To think like, but I can kind of buy like, no, it's fine, I'll just come back in the morning, and then in the morning like everything is different, like to what he had planned. I think his plan was very stupid, but I don't think it's like a problem with the movie. I think the movie's aware that Ransom's plan is like very idiotic.
Probably. And I mean, to play devil's advocate with a lot of true crime, you look up like cases like this, like people who commit murder, they usually make really stupid mistakes. So I'm like, I'm willing to accept that kind of a thing, but it's the fact that the movie tries to frame it like the perfect crime, like Harlan, saved her by the fact that he like made the perfect reason for him to die, and with the suicide. It's the whole thing. He's poisoned. She quote unquote killed him, so he commits suicide so she doesn't, get condemned of murder. It's my problem isn't more on Ransom, it's more on him. And I suppose the best you can give him is he had 10 minutes to do it all. And I'm like, okay. But then the bigger thing is the fact that he's not symptomatic. It's like,
Mm.
Harlan, you've taken morphine before. I'm like, that shit in your veins. Like you'd feel that. If you feel nothing, like you'd think they'd pause at some point and just go like, nothing's happened. Like
Well, they
maybe
were
just maybe
panicking. I
something.
think. I think they were just like panicking
Yeah.
and.
It's the problem though. It's kind of all. It's just like, well, they were freaking out and they didn't know what to do, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, fine. It's just it's the best you can give the movie. I'm willing to do that. It just does make Harlan's death a little stupid because they even
Yeah.
say that
You know, she
he
called
was
the
fine and
ambulance
he would
like
have.
she wanted to. She would have saved him. So yeah.
Yeah, that line's supposed to be like, oh my god, if only. But it's like, well, yeah, that or you could have recognized that he wasn't symptomatic at all. So yeah, I don't know. It's it's weird how all of that works, and it unfortunately like strings most of the movie together. But the the more interesting thing is the fact just right actually had a video where he talked about this movie and what he argued is that the movie starts as a whodunit, it turns into a quote unquote crime movie, and then it switches back into a whodunit. I don't think it's quite that smooth, but like that is kind of what they do with Marta. They make it so that she's trying to get rid of evidence, and then at the end, Ransom becomes the new mystery, as it were. It's like a new mystery that comes up, and it's interesting. It's an interesting way to structure the movie. Like I said, I do think it unfortunately makes the ensemble cast largely boring and samey. They just kind of, especially after the will reading, they just all are like a hive mind basically. And I don't know. They give some like character to people like Meg and Walt, which I appreciate. It's a little better than some of the characters in Glass Onion get, but it's an interesting way to spin the story.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think I just like I like the movie trying to like I don't know, like the comedy of errors that is the entire plan. I think it's just like a fairly interesting way to take a whodunit to be like, no, it was so stupid. Like the answer was right in front of us, and we overthought it. And it was the same thing in the second one. And obviously, I assume it's gonna be the same thing in the third one. But I think it's just like
Yeah.
the first one, it disguises its stupidity better until it's revealed that you're like, oh, damn, there's a lot of layers to how like that all this shit it went down. It's funny. um
Well, I was mentioning it to you. Hot Fuzz
yeah.
is specifically with Glass Onion. That's what I would cite because the idea with the Glass Onion is that it's something that seems layered, but the answer is clear and the center is right in plain sight. So, spoilers for Hot Fuzz. Watch it. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. That movie is a glass onion. The main character is a detective who's like super overqualified to be in this village to be solving this mystery of like what's going on. It's this super complex conspiratorial mystery, and Timothy Dalton is the villain, and it's like it's him. And I know this because of all this and that and that. And they do the same thing that they do in all these movies where each movie ends with Blanc laying everything out. Every detective movie ends that way. Like I said, Scooby-Doo, Velma always lays out the clues. And it's like, that was what that meant. But then it all fails. It's like, it isn't him. So it's like, what's going on? The answer is all of the motives for all the crimes in that movie are so obvious but so stupid in regards to, so like for instance, they kill actors that like play in the play Romeo and Juliet, and their reasoning, they ruined Shakespeare. It's like they killed them because they were such bad actors, and all of the motives are like that. And it's so funny seeing Nick like, what the fuck? It's like all of this because of that. And the movie ends with a huge battle. I love Hot Fuzz. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And
Mm-hmm. Love that too.
I think if you want a glass onion type of story, that's the better approach. Like an overqualified detective who like overlooks the clues because they're too obvious, and there's other clues that seem more within the realm of like what they're used to or what you'd expect with a mystery story. That movie's a subversive mystery just like these movies are. But yeah, I definitely prefer that movie's approach versus Glass Onion, and like less so Knives Out. But I mean, it's the title of the second movie. You know, they're definitely trying to make that the approach.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're kind of different. Like, because like one is like a detect. One is like a cop movie, kind of like Hot Fuzz. It's kind of, that of like the buddy cop movie, whereas this one is like a whodunit, like basically Clue. They even say like his house looks like a Clue board.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, by the way,
And
that's a
they
movie I
reference
am
Clue in
going
this.
to recommend at some point. It's Clue
I
from 1985 because
I
I love that movie.
It's so funny. I actually need to. I watched some of that. It was like kind of on the background of a place I was at. And I didn't sit down and watch it, but I saw some of it, and I was like on and off. But I do need to give that movie a chance. A lot of people love Clue. I've heard it's like a shockingly good adaptation of the board game. So
It's
yeah.
a very funny movie. I love it. And it has one of my all-time favorite, like, the way the movie ends is hilarious. That's all I'll say. But anyway,
Fair.
obviously they make it to be like a clues thing. It's kind of like a different genre to Hot Fuzz, even though I kind of get where you're coming from with like, this detective story that turns out to be like way simpler because the detective is overlooking things. I kind of think like Blanc is just kind of an idiot in both movies instead of like being the super detective they call him
Yeah.
as, which I don't know if
Well,
it's on purpose or if like not.
I think
I'm
it
not sure.
is on it. Well,
Yeah,
there's the line from Marta, like you're not a great detective or whatever, and
you're
like
a
you make a
lousy
lousy
murderer.
criminal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that line. I was like, yeah, he did miss some obvious
Oh.
shit.
Well, I was mentioning this to you, like considering that there are two movies now and we're getting a third movie, I'm like, I would posit that these movies are masquerading as mysteries. And what
Mm-hmm.
they actually are power fantasies. A power fantasy of a woman who is a minority being pitted against largely white, a largely white cast whom have been handed everything to them on a silver platter by a rich white man. And it's like, is that like a really simplistic way of looking at them? I'm like, yeah. But I'm like, tell me I'm wrong. That is a through line in both movies now. We'll see if Wake Up Dead Man follows suit. But I find it a weird pattern that it is in both movies because it's like, that's kind of what happens. In both movies, it's like Blanc's the main character. It's like, no, he's not. It's like Marta's the main character. And then, Helen's the main character. The second movie, they switch it on you where they give you a detective, but the person who does all of the actual detectiving is Helen
Yeah.
and Marta. And I don't. This is where I'm like, a problem I have with both of these movies is that Blanc isn't really the main character of his own movies. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
even call Glass Onion a Knives Out mystery rather than a Benoit Blanc mystery, because
Yeah.
it's true. It's
Well, I
not
mean,
really his
well, yeah, but
story, and it's
they
like,
wanted to sell. That was Netflix. Like Rian Johnson only wanted to call it Glass Onion. Netflix forced him to add
it,
a Knives Out mystery in the name. Like he
that
said
makes
many
sense.
times that he did not want that, and it's like, yeah, it's like
It should
it's in
have.
the same universe, but it's kind of like I don't know. I kind of like the idea of like a trilogy of movies that like features a returning character, but he is not a, the main character. I think that's such a fun
Yeah,
idea.
like he almost enables another main character to do like he's like an assistant to the main character. Yeah, like it's a weird like, you know, idea, isn't it? That the quote unquote main character is just the wingman for the actual main
Yeah.
character, but that is kind of what is the thing in both of these movies. So and you were mentioning that like they seem to make Blanc just a canonical idiot, and I think as much because so The perfect example, I feel like we're semi-transitioning into Glass Onion, but oh my god, when Duke dies. So I was paying super close attention to the drink. It's a blink and you miss it moment. All of them are. You can see him swipe Duke's gun. It's like so out of frame. You can just see his arm moving, and he clearly like puts something behind his back. You can see Duke's phone on the table in one shot, and then in the next shot that they cut to Miles, the phone's gone. But I just love that he's in the room with all of them, and Blanc doesn't see any of that when he solved the bullshit like crossbow like fake murder mystery thing, like just like it was nothing. It's like you missed all of that. Like
It is funny.
unless he
I
was
also think like there's no way he would have missed that, but the slightest clues in the fucking crossbow thing, it's funny.
yeah. I don't know. Have you ever done one of those like real life murder mystery parties?
No. I mean, closest I did is like
I
the escape thingy, escape rooms.
uh it's relatively similar. I've done one of those before, and it's actually a genuine disappointment for me is that they just dropped all that. Like Blanc just solves all of it, and I'm like, because that was what I'd heard the original premise of this movie was. You know, everyone is invited to Miles's house to solve his murder, and it's like a murder mystery game. It's like a real murder actually goes down. It's like, ooh, but it just stops being a thing after that happens, and everyone just drinks themselves silly after that. And I felt like kind of a waste to just get rid of that, because in a murder mystery like the one that I did anyway, like everyone is given like a role. You're given like a script of
Yeah.
like this character is this and that and that and that. The actual murderer knows who they are. You're meant to hide that, and then you're supposed to talk to everyone. That's the whole thing. Everyone's supposed to talk, learn more about their quote unquote identity. And then, you could have done something interesting. You could have had their fake identities tie into actual motives, or maybe,
Yeah.
make it seem like someone's the actual killer. I remember being disappointed when I watched this movie for the first time that they just dropped that, like part of
Doing
the
a
way.
whodunit inside, like
Uh,
a fake jokey whodunit inside a whodunit would have been really fun. Really would. But they can't. They just
yeah.
didn't do that. It was just like set dressing for the next thing. It was, it's
Yeah. I,
just less
but
interesting.
yeah, Glass Onion is weird. So the switch, we already touched on that, but my problem with Helen is that she is we know Precious Little, for one. The twins thing is its own deal. So Helen is Andy's like identical twin. We
Mm,
know Precious Little about her because she wasn't like a character before. They don't like show how she died to open the movie, which they do in the first movie. They show Harlan like, being found dead. They could
yeah.
have done something like that, but for some reason they like opened on all the ensemble cast getting their boxes. So precious little about how Andy actually was as a person. You only get the little snippets of what Helen tells other characters that she was like. And it doesn't even seem like they were that close. She lived in Alabama and Andy lived in New York. And it's like, well, did you know her? I mean,
I think
everyone
they were
grows up with their
close when
sibling,
they
but
were
like,
like children, I guess.
yeah, well, again, she has her journals. It's like that's
Mm.
apparently how she knew everything about her. She's read her journals. It's like, okay. And I mean, and anyone would care about their sibling being killed, I'd imagine, but it's so frustrating that she is just kind of stoic and in the background of most of the first half of the movie until they revealed the truth. And like I said, I remember watching this movie for the first time. Like, she's been barely in this movie. She's said cryptic shit, and she just keeps popping in and out. I'm guessing she's really important. It's like, yeah, she turned out to be important, and then they go back on everything, which like you were mentioning the pacing, because that's the biggest
Well,
thing
it's
for
two
me.
movies in one, right?
Yeah, it's the movie again. I would say it's that I would compare it directly to The Last of Us Part Two. It's a switch where it's like all of a sudden, who you thought was the main character is like, no, it's actually about this character. And I feel like the point is to make you, in The Last of Us, it's definitely meant to be that. It's like, well, you know, Abby's not all that bad. She saved lives. Not getting into that. It affects the pacing when you just basically do the game over again. You've been through this story and then you just do it all again. And I think it was unnecessary too, because the reason why they show actual scenes from the movie is I would call it almost like a fake retrospective, because like the pool, for instance, you see Lionel and Agatha talking about Clear and would, like, you know, I don't.
I forgot the character's name, but you calling her Agatha is great. Catherine Kahn, yeah, I forgot the character name.
Yeah. She's the fucking governor of Connecticut. I did not appreciate that on my first, like, that is a huge and she makes a big deal of that, whatever. But you see Blanc earlier in the movie, like looking at that conversation. It's like, ooh, what's that all about? They're having a discussion, and then just Helen overhears that, but Blanc's just out of earshot. He's out of earshot for like Whiskey supposedly cheating with Miles, and then he's out of earshot for everything important, so you don't have like the quote unquote clues until after the fact, when Helen like discovers the clues on her own. And it's just, I wish that they'd given even snippets of those to trim down on the time, so we don't have to pedal through the entire movie again. Because it's just like, we've seen this before. We've seen the movie, and we're getting information that you deprived us of before, where we didn't see that, and now we do. So I don't know. It's over long. It's like 2.5 hours, give or take, and it could have been closer to 2 had they trimmed down on the going through the movie again, or at least done it in a more interesting way. Like had Helen see things, or had scenes that like she didn't experience with the rest of the movie, and they don't really do that.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. I mean, the thing is, right? I didn't not enjoy Glass Onion, but I think it's a fine movie, like average, like okay, I kind of see what you're doing in terms of like, the Helen fighting back, and the making
like
fun
a
of
Netflix
billionaires.
original.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's like, I don't know if I liked it, like, because when I rate things on Letterboxd, I give a number rating, and then I like them if I enjoyed watching, and I, just a little heart, and I don't give a heart if I didn't enjoy it. It's fairly like obvious how it works, and obviously, there's some times where I watch a good movie and I'm like not super entertained, so I'm like, yeah, I think it probably did that with like Blue is the Warmest Color, which I know is one of your favorite movies, but regardless, where I was like,
okay,
yeah,
that's going to be recommended at some point. I'll have a lot to say about it.
And there are, bad movies that I give a like to. Like, I'm pretty sure I gave a like to, like, The Happening or whatever. Like, yeah, I enjoyed watching it. But this movie, I couldn't make myself give a heart to it, because I was just thinking, like, did I enjoy it? Because it just wastes so much time, and I kind of get the idea. It felt like an episode of TV instead of like a movie. And like 2 episodes of TV put into one. Like there's an episode of TV, and then the next episode is like recontextualizing the previous episode, instead of just being like a movie. And I think if Rian Johnson had interspersed like the flashbacks and everything, like the second half of the movie into the first half, it would have been a lot more interesting than just like rewinding and doing the movie all over again. So that's kind of why, like, I don't know if I like it, but I don't think it's like bad or unenjoyable.
It's a great way of looking at it, honestly, the whole 2 TV episodes thing. Because like I said, it's pretty much at the halfway point. It's give or take like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie with an hour and 10 left. It's pretty much halfway, and that's exactly what it feels like. There's a huge like cut to black moment where they leave it open, and then you basically go through it again. And I'm like, I get way more out of a rewatch from Knives Out. There's more with the rest of the cast, like characters like Meg and Walt, like I was mentioning before, are actual characters in the story, you learn something about it. Even someone like Helen, I like a lot of the ensemble cast. I think the plot is more interesting. The pacing is better. I far more enjoy like watching Knives Out as a movie, but Glass Onion, I don't know what there is to go back to, you know? It's
Hmm.
like, what's the draw?
It
Like,
just seems like a
I,
much more surface level, much less interesting, much like a first draft version of like Knives Out, whereas Knives Out feels a lot more polished and like an actual movie. Glass Onion feels like a Netflix movie in like a very derogatory way
yeah.
of looking at that term.
Yeah. I mean, cinematography is still pretty good for the most part and good perform. I mean, something that I think is actually a merit of both movies is they have really good set design and, cinematography. Again, one of those like Last Jedi type of praises. But seriously, there are good things in both movies. But like in terms of how the story is told and how the cast is used, I definitely think Knives Out is a more effective experience. So,
Yep.
yeah. I there's there's more to talk about, like the Mona Lisa and the way the boxes actually work, and COVID is the setting in Glass Onion, even
It
though
is
it's
kind
like
of hilarious how they
completely
just
unnecessary.
like they just like cure COVID. I thought it was hilarious that like a billionaire just has the cure for COVID and
Yeah,
is like, don't worry about it. I thought that was a hilarious joke.
yeah, and Ethan Hawke with this weird ponytail. It's so funny. Apparently, he was able to be there because he was on Moon Knight or something. Like, I think he
Yeah.
was like filming that, and he could be on set for like one day, and that's the scene that he's at where they shoot the bullshit like CO2 gun into your mouth, and it like I don't even know. It's probably just a complete placebo, but I just found it funny that they just dropped that and it's like not a thing because
I mean, that's kind of the
I
like
just
part of the commentary they're making of billionaires there. It's like these kinds of like tragedies and like world tragedies, pandemics, whatever. They don't affect these people. Like they're above it. So I
yeah
kind of like the
well
way
I
they're
mean
done with they did that. So I don't know. I kind of like it.
yeah but then the way that they use the masks like the um Duke and Whiskey aren't wearing masks. They're like right wing Twitch streamers,
Yeah.
and like the senator has like
Birdie's
the
mask is
mouth
fucking
like not covering the
hilarious.
nose.
That doesn't.
Yeah, it's like mesh.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I like see
Yeah.
that type of thing. I find funnier than a lot of like the overt jokes because that's all like in the background and people don't comment on it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one that I actually really liked is Peg's cup is the fact that like Miles has like these named cups for like his guests and then he
She
forgets Peg's name and when he gives her a drink it's just the red party cup
plastic,
and then
yeah,
she
plastic cup,
draws
and
her
she draws her
name
name. I thought that was
on it with
great.
marker. It's like everyone else's cups have their name and she just writes it on it
Yeah.
just cuz. So
I wish Peg was more of
but
a character, by the way, because I thought she had some of the most interesting
yeah,
things to like be in terms of potential because she is like extremely just being like exploited by Birdie and she's kind of fucked her. She's tied her entire career to Birdie. So yeah, there
well,
was a lot of
she
interesting things.
she reminded me a lot of Meg in that regard, where
Yeah,
she like is kind of the good person amidst the crowd. She's like
yeah.
the one empathetic and like kind of human person. Same with Whiskey. Whiskey, like was pretty sympathetic for the most part, which I appreciate. But there's someone that's more on the human side in the cast of largely caricatures, like you said. But yeah, nice. Hmm. Yeah, there's what do you just to get back to the plotting and to you know criticize these movies in the way that we like you might say used to Blanc sending Helen to the island. I just
That's
like
insane. Absolutely bananas.
yeah and he even says it. He's like you
I
have to
can't
throw out
protect
and need some
you.
more
Yeah.
but still, it's one of those things. Like you could say that all you want, Blog, but come on, dude, it's too risky. It's too insane, and
See,
all to
if
get
Blanc was a
other.
character, he wouldn't do that. But he isn't a character. He's just a vehicle for the plot.
Yeah, they needed an excuse to get Helen on the island, and that's kind of what they went with. Which it's one of those funny things you were mentioning that we were both talking that he's kind of the wingman, the second character who helps the actual main characters. Like, had he not been in this movie, you could have just had her figure all that out on her own. She could have disguised herself. That could be the mystery. She's her twin sister. She like is convinced her sister didn't commit suicide, so she's like, okay, I'll pretend to be her and accept the invitation. She gets it in the mail, so she could just take that and be like, all right, I'll infiltrate it. I'll act like I'm her, because she could have done everything without Blanc's help.
Yeah.
Really, like straight up.
Yeah, Blanc was not. He did not need to be there.
He sure as shit didn't notice Duke's gun getting stolen.
It was so funny. How they didn't? I don't know, man.
Yeah, and Miles an idiot, but also a sleight of hand master who, like, just can do these clever moves and twist things. It's just yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of appreciate what Glass Onion was going for in terms of just like, people treating billionaires like these complicated geniuses when they, like Miles Braun is obviously a joke on Elon Musk. I remember that when the movie came out. It's clear. And it's just true. He is an idiot in real life, and he is an idiot in the movie.
It's like Trump, though. I think I've talked about like just blatant Trump allegories before, of just being one of those, like, I get it, it's like, yeah, of course, but it's like, yeah, it's not complicated to make fun of Elon, just an idiot billionaire, a super affluent idiot of like, yeah, I know what they're going for. And, it is kind of funny. And I do think Edward Norton is pretty funny in this movie for the most part. So I don't know. Little something to be said there in terms of execution.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just, it should have been redrafted. The characters should have been more of like characters than they were. But it's not like an irredeemable mess of a movie that I thought it was when I first watched it. So, yeah. I don't know. I would definitely recommend Knives Out. Glass Onion, I'm more on the fence. I think Glass Onion, I'm more like, maybe? If you enjoyed Knives Out, Glass Onion is just like a worse version of it. So maybe you'll appreciate it. Like, if you like Knives Out, maybe you'll just like seeing more of Knives Out. Just like not as good. So
funny recommendation. Honestly, that's similar to mine, where I'm just like, I would recommend Knives Out and I wouldn't recommend Glass Onion. It's the direct sequel to Knives Out, but I do think Knives Out is better than Glass Onion.
Yeah.
And I am nowhere near a fan. I've rewatched Knives Out more than I think I've maybe seen Glass Onion twice, and this is the first time I've seen it in a while, and I just am like, yeah, I do not like rewatching this movie. So I'm curious how Wake Up Dead Man will be, and I will still see it in theaters. I always like to root for Rian Johnson. I do like him as a filmmaker largely, but he has some weird scripts, and I just wish he had a co-writer, like he's someone that I think would work well with like one or two other writers to like maybe polish out his stories a little bit, maybe ground them a little more in reality, but I don't know. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
For these movies. Yeah, it was an interesting... You know what? I'm glad I did this. I wanted to give these movies another shot. Ever since I mentioned in the last episode, my friend was like, "No, come on." Just like, he actually only told me to watch Knives Out, but I was like, let's watch both. And Glass Onion is not as bad as I remembered, so it was worth it. So yeah.
But I appreciate you letting me wait to rewatch all this, because I was late last night, and it was like I did want to give Glass Onion a solid chance. I could have just been like, yeah, I'd rewatch whatever, like, didn't go off my memory and like what I had in front of me. But I'm like, nah, I'll watch it in full, give it a chance, and I'm glad I did. It was an interesting retrospective.
Yeah. All right, it's your turn to recommend something, Evan. What are you going to recommend us?
It is. I did not have one like specifically in mind, but I picked one. I want to get us back to our Groundhog Day arc. I am going with Edge of Tomorrow. Um, brought that up
Okay.
before. I really liked both Happy Death Day movies when we watched that and talked about them on the podcast. And I actually am not sure if I'd prefer one or the other of those above Edge of Tomorrow, but I always loved Edge of Tomorrow for having a very Groundhog Day style story and it having a unique spin on it. I love that movie, and it's funny. It's actually kind of similar to this, where it's one of those like certain plot isms. We even talked about this with Happy Death Day, like to you, where there's things you're like explaining how this works kind of like affects this and that and you know, but it's so entertaining and it's just such a great summer blockbuster. I will never forget watching that in theaters for the first time. I love Edge of Tomorrow and I think you'd probably like it, so
All right.
curious to see what you think.
It's been on my list for ages, so I'm excited to watch it. Okay. Edge of Tomorrow then is what we're gonna talk about next week, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for giving Rian Johnson another chance with us. And yeah. All right.
I'm sure you'll be fair.
Yeah. All right. We'll catch you next week, folks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.